Welcome to the Better Players, Better People podcast. I'm pleased to be joined by AJ today. I've been trying to get you on for a while, haven't I, mate?
I'm an elusive man, hard to get hold of.
You are. You're a very, very busy man. So my notes say here, while most of us are delivering sport on the ground, you are shaping the ecosystem. I thought that was a perfect way to probably sum up what your job role is with ESM. So what I like to do with guests is for them to qualify themselves and talk a little bit about their current role. Obviously, this podcast is aimed at parents, talking about the topic of youth sport. So if you don't mind, can you just start with what is your current role? What have you been up to? What is keeping you very busy?
Sure. Thank you very much for the introduction. And yeah, definitely glad to finally be here. At ESM, we are the largest sports management provider in the Middle East. We look after roughly 48 sports facilities. It's 500 sports complexes, anything from football pitches to swimming pools, tennis courts. And roughly, I've given you the figure of 30,000 hours of sports content a year. My role is as sports director for that organisation.
Yeah, and I'm glad we started with the numbers. What was the number of coaches that you just told me off camera?
It was 1,500 coaches that are currently making all of that tick.
So 1,500 coaches, that is in the programme that you're responsible for. Would that be a fair description?
Yeah, so that's in the ecosystem. So that's everything from football coaches to tennis coaches to providers who do chess and athletics, everything like that as well.
So I've actually sat with other people before who've been in charge of programmes, who've maybe got their own sports company and have got a number of coaches. I think it'd be fair to say your role is probably the biggest. You've probably done it for the longest. I think you're getting on for 10 years now with the ESM.
10 years with ESM. This is my 17th year in the UAE.
And you've moved all the way from, certainly when I met you, you were heading up at a football academy, you were a Coach Applejuice. You've been in operations and now you've got this more strategic level. So I think for parents, obviously what we're going to try and do today is talk a little bit about what goes on behind the scenes, because you work in that space that people will never see. And I think we were discussing off camera some of the costs involved with operating and running the sport. So let's start there then. Obviously, a lot of administration, a lot of quality checks.
Yeah.
Let's start with the quality assurance you've brought in to ESM academies, because when I heard this, I have not heard an organisation do this before, but I thought it was brilliant. I thought it was a really positive step.
I'm glad that you say that because it's not always made us the most popular organisation, because people see it as, jumping through hoops and going through unnecessary steps, but we see it as absolutely necessary, because safety and quality are, two of the biggest cornerstones of what we do. Let me start at the back end. So we govern, as I said, over 128 different sports academies that we have under our umbrella. And it's not just like having a brand new shiny car. A brand new shiny car, they'll come to us because we've got the sports facilities, but what we'll say, stop, let's look underneath the hood, and we'll give every single academy a full MOT before they even set foot in our office, let alone set foot on the sports pitch of a school, starting with insurance, starting with the trade license. Then we go all the way down to the level of qualifications that the coaches have, first aid, child safeguarding, and then down to the minutiae like risk assessments and I can bore you with abbreviations, but POPs and NOPs and everything like that. But we take it very, very seriously.
So you've obviously been here now, is it 16, 17 years?
This is year 17 now. Yeah.
You've described it, we've described it, I've heard it described this way before, as the Wild West.
Yeah.
What did that look like? Because I think parents should really know what it was and where we are now. What did it look like then before people like yourself, organisations like yourself, were driving and ensuring these quality assurance things were in place? What was it before then?
So, without sounding too crass, any man and his dog could pick up a bag of balls, head down to Safa Park, which was mostly where it was taking place, set up shop and charge anything from 5, 10, 50 to 100 dirhams for a football session, dance session, athletics session. It was unregulated. It was unsafe. We had parents teaching the wrong things in the wrong way, wrong techniques. We had coaches who were unregulated. We had coaches who we didn't know who they were. They may have had criminal histories in their countries of origin. Anyone can come to Dubai and reinvent themselves for the better because there were previously no checks. So that's all been stamped out. In terms of the actual facilities that you can actually conduct your lessons on as well. We look at everything from A to Z. There's a few heritage academies that are still going to this day. Like, for example, if you wanted basketball, there was only one academy. It was MPAC. Yeah. Football, you were looking at Jebel Ali Centre of Excellence, which is now morphed into IJF. You're looking at dance. You're looking at Turning Point, tennis, CF Tennis. So there were 4 or 5 different academies that existed back then. Everything else was just a quick money grab. They'd be here today, gone tomorrow.
So look, the health and safety aspect, I think no one would argue with that. There needs to be, like we called it CRB checks in the UK. There needs to be police checks. There needs to be a verification of qualifications. Absolutely. What about the quality on the sideline, or whether it be a pool, a court? What type of standards do you set there? That's quite intriguing to me. What type of standards do you ask for academies that operate in your venues?
So we have a minimum standard in terms of the coaching level to get through the door. But whilst people get through the door and they can't just relax, it's not like a contract situation where you sign it and put it away in the top drawer. We are constantly assessing these academies. So every month they'll get a QA assessment, which we call the 5-star rating. So everyone knows what Booking.com is, right?
Do you have 7-star, AJ? We're in the bar, aren't we? Is there any 7-star?
That's next. So we'll start with 5 first. We want to narrow down the barriers. And what we've got is, as I say, it's a 48 mark quality assurance system, and we grade everything from the level of qualifications, their provider operating procedures, which we call them, their safeguarding procedures, their child protection procedures, but also what their lesson plans look like, what their curriculum looks like, and what their pathways look like as well. So a swim academy that we're talking about, they have a learner program, but they also have the elite level. What type of competitions do they enter? Are they involved in any international competitions? Have they had any international representation? And also to what level? So we'll grade all of those out of 5, and you'll get a grade from either 3-star, 4-star, and 5-star, and that's public.
7-star in the future.
7-star in the future. So, that's coming.
Look, all of that, no one again is going to argue with that. That just sounds like a really good level of assurance for parents who are putting their kids, they're trusting you with the kids, so the safety is so on, but the quality, to hear what you're doing in terms of checking if they've got an international program and pathways is great. Does that raise the cost then? We're in a pay-to-play culture. Are the things that you're putting in place because they need staff power to do, does that raise the cost for the end user?
It doesn't raise the cost, which is a real common misconception. People think that because we have all these high standards that we're really expensive to do business with, and it's not. It's an investment that we put in place to be able to deliver that level of service. Our decision-making model, as we have at ESM, is based on 4 things. And the first thing is always safety. Safety is paramount. The second one is, does it add value, or is it adding a level of quality? The third thing down that is cost. We're in a commercial organisation. This is very commercially driven, of course, and we don't try and hide that. But that's third on the decision-making. And then number 4 is, does it align with what our values are?
So you've went from coach, head coach, facility manager, academy manager, operations, and now this really broad scope. Obviously, you've built programs. It sounds like now you're building systems. What's the difference between designing a football program to systems which cater for, is it 30,000 of hours of sport? What does that look like? And obviously you've built the skills because you've gradually progressed and got bigger scope. How do you find that role now compared to previous roles? It's
tough because at my very nature, and you'll know this, I am a control freak. I want to be involved in absolutely everything, and that's how it started.
Is everything still on Excel? You still?
Oh no!
I go back to the days when we worked together. And it was the Excel sheet. Yeah.
And honestly, it was. But we wouldn't do that. We wouldn't be able to do what we do to this scale without systems. So going from AJ the doer, look at that situation, fix that right now. I have to almost take 10 steps back, or as they say, 30,000 feet. There's a phrase on my course. It's called temporal awareness, and it's basically knowing how to balance between what needs to be done now and what can be pushed back to later. Looking at the balance between operational and strategy, and that's simply what I'm doing. We've got 30,000 hours, so which is 30,000 opportunities for something to go wrong.
The course you brought up there, by the way, is one of the reasons I've not been able to get you on. You've had your head in a book or on a webinar, haven't you? Masters in Sports Directorship, is that correct?
It is.
What does that look like? It's
one of the best things I've ever done in my life. was something I did when I was 40, and you say midlife crisis. Most people buy a sports car. I sign up for a Masters. It's done remotely at the Manchester Met University. It's one of the toughest things I've ever done. It's split over kind of 5 units, everything from leadership to managing strategic operations, innovation, what are we on now? Governance, finance and compliance, and then a sports directorship dissertation, which I'm actually doing on the UAE in terms of strategy.
And you've had some high-end speakers, am I right in saying you've come across or networked with some from elite sport? On
my course in particular, we've got Glenn Murray, ex-Brighton and Hove Albion. We've got Joe Launchbury, I think he's still currently playing for England Rugby. We've had we've got the head of the Scottish SPFL. We've had the head of Kick It Out Racism. Like, there's some really, really great networking opportunities, which is also one of the reasons why.
And you've been exposed to the elite environment because you've had lectures, I think, from people who've been in charge of elite programs, haven't you? So I'm sure you're taking aspects of what they've done and bringing it to the youth sports sector of the UAE. Would that be right?
So what I'm really actually pleased and really lucky to have is my current managing director and my former current managing director, both actually alumni on this course as well. So Gareth and Pippa, good shout out to you. Also someone that we both know very well, Mark Gateskill, is a former alumni on that course as well. And they speak very, very highly of it, not just for the content, but also the practical elements that you can bring into your day-to-day. So I do get to go on the course on a Wednesday and Thursday and then bring it into my everyday life from what I'm doing.
It's just great to hear, isn't it? Like, I've sat with so many people and we've talked about opportunity after opportunity, but the governance behind youth sport now, I can't imagine there's many countries who are doing what we're doing and what you're doing yourself with your role. Absolutely. And it's not unique to your group of schools. There's other schools now who are starting to put these things in place. 16 years in the UAE?
16,
16 years in the UAE. You've obviously seen where it's come from. Not just on the sports field, everyone's seen the city, the way it's grown and adapted and evolved. What do you foresee the next 10 years looking like of youth sport then? What do you see that looking like?
I hope it just continues to become more professionalised. I hope that it becomes more collaborative in terms of people speaking to each other in organisations. So schools speaking to each other, academies speaking to each other, and above that level, we've got the microsystem which we deal with the athletes and the football players and the parents. But above that, the UAE strategy, the UAE sports strategy, and the UAE vision 2031, that needs to be fed down to everybody to understand that it's not just somebody's responsibility on the school pitch and somebody to go and do a master's to bring it together. It needs to be led from the government. So in 10 years' time, we can be talking about the UAE not just having one World Cup appearance in 1990. And last year, I think at Paris, they had 14 representatives from the UAE. Their target for 2031 is 30 Olympians. So, we've got 6 years to do that. I think with the amount of funding and the amount of clever, really strong people at the ministry and the Dubai Sports Council, we can definitely achieve that.
And it starts with the schools. It starts broadening that base, getting kids playing.
Absolutely.
You can see it now with the football. The UAE FA are starting to go in schools and work with students. Absolutely. There's certainly things going on with other sports as well. But yeah, it's just exciting, isn't it, to be where we are now and be part of that, I think would be...
It's a great place. It's a great place. So we talk about football that we used to play in the UK. They used to have, your club teams, your school teams, and they used to have your rep teams and you travel around. It was all very closed off here before, but I think people are now seeing that there are some good people. There's some really good practitioners who aren't just worried about the commerciality of their business. They're worried about the long-term development of the programme in the UAE. So when they do leave, they've left it in a better place than when they got here. There's Dover, there's DOBA, all these acronyms again, but the government-led initiatives that are a lot better than when we first got here.
So, AJ, what you've just said there about noticing how people are starting to work together and understanding there's a lot of good people now in the city who have got long-term interests of our next generation at heart. Now, obviously, where you operate is a little bit more of a strategic level. I think it'd be fair to say you're probably not taking teams on a weekend.
You'd be surprised.
Yeah, maybe. But I've had coaches in who've shared with me that at times the culture of play to play, and the academies who you could argue is for profit. They're trying to look after their own interests and keep kids in their program. The emphasis on winning might become a bit too much. Do you think that we're becoming too transactional in youth sport? Is it too much of a right, we pay, you're in, and here's the sport program? Is that the scenario that you see from where you operate?
The short answer to that is yes. Obviously, there's a lot more nuance around it, and it's only going to get better with more support from the government and the federations. There are 58 different federations in the UAE, ranging from some of them that are very, very, very strong, very organised, very aligned with the vision, have the right people in charge of them. I have to be careful with what I say. And there's some that are, let's say, without saying living in the past, they have a lot of work to do to get themselves realigned. I
think what you're alluding to there is when a federation is involved with youth sport, they will want to talent ID. My experience of being involved with federations is talent ID. They need to identify quite early who could be successful in their sport by whatever metric they do. It's talent ID. Now, the talent ID element of youth sport for me should come after participation, i.e. there should be a broad base of kids playing that sport, enjoying that sport, because you have late developers, you have kids who come into the game late and they've got the skills, the physical abilities to excel. That would support talent ID. The question was, I didn't mean to trip you up. I know you're very involved with sports council and so on, and there's things we probably can't talk about, but reflecting on that, I do think I have seen the sports council certainly target a broader base. We see that with the bicycle games. We see them wanting to get more kids playing a larger variety of sports. I think every event that I've been to at the bicycle games is full. I think they're probably expanding more and more now. So by definition, that broadens the base. The concern I've got, and one of the reasons I've set up this podcast, is because parents play a huge part in youth sport, supporting them, choosing what they do. And I think there's also almost like an educational piece we need to do there. And we need to make sure it's not too much about the prestige. The kids who don't get picked for the ID programs, there's still value to have in these programs. Does that make sense?
Absolutely.
So I just thought it was quite interesting to touch on and see if you've got, an opinion on that from where you sit and operationals and strategy and so on. Let's move on to...
I can probably talk about it a bit more once my dissertation comes out, because that's actually the subject of my dissertation. It's the difference between science, subjectivity and strategy, and how talent ID systems, academies and the school system fit in with the UAE vision. So,
well, we'll look forward to that. Maybe get you back on when you can plan that out for me.
No problem.
Let's move on to... Let's bring it back to the kids. Let's talk about... We know the current state of UA sport. There's so much opportunity. For me in my role, sometimes there's too much. Just today I was meeting with heads of sport across Talim, and there was more opportunities. There was new things coming on. There was a netball event hosted by a company in Europe. They're going to book out certain parts of the Atlantis and do an Atlantis netball tournament, which is just amazing, and there's going to be a lot of teams coming here to the UAE. My job sometimes is balancing that out, because you've got kids who still got academics when they get to year 10, year 11. When youth sport is done properly, which it largely is done here, what does that give the children?
I mean, you and as a PE teacher, you will know. So you're probably asking me to give you a pat on the back for what what every PE teacher does here, and they are so important, and they are the unsung heroes. And you mentioned what I do is, behind the scenes. What people don't realise is the number of hours that you guys put in. The 6 a.m. I'll say 6 a.m. get up to 6 a.m. sessions, the after school fixtures, the travelling across the country.
You say that, AJ, but listen, there's another side to it, because there's influx of more school holidays. There's a lot of weekend sport. You've mentioned the football leagues and so on. I like to think that we kind of have got a good relationship now where, our job will really finish at like 5 o'clock, but then the academies will pick up. So I think the coaches you're responsible for as well I've got a large part to play in this.
So this is what I'm talking about in terms of collaboration, and what a school needs to look for as a bare minimum is an academy to come in and be a part of that, almost be at that tertiary member of staff. So anytime that I've worked in a school or worked around the school, I've not just brought my bag of footballs or basketballs or whatever it is at 3:30 when the school finishes, set up on the pitch and gone. You'd go in earlier. You'd know the heads of PE. You'd collaborate. You'd know what season they're going into, so you can work off what they're working in their PE lessons to continue it into the academies as well. So there just needs to be a real smooth pathway between school and academy.
Yeah, because look, we've talked about what it's going to give the nation.
Yep.
There's no harm in saying we want podiums. We want the UAE. We want to watch those Olympics when they roll around. We want more participants from the UAE. I think even expats living here would feel a sense of pride in that. They want the medals. You've talked on what it gives the community there in terms of the school community.
Yeah.
But let's go back to the kids, because the point of this podcast here for me is that's great. Podiums, medals, trophies, and so on. Keeping kids playing for as long as possible, certainly when they've left school, hopefully playing beyond it. What's the age groups that you see with your academies? You've got a large number of academies. Is it quite bottom heavy, or do you have a lot of kids who still play under 19 and upwards and maybe go and play open age then?
Yeah, I mean, it certainly does kind of taper off towards the elite. And I hate using that word elite, but the top performance level, because kids have other interests. And as you know, it gets harder to compete at that top level. So the bottom level is hugely where our talent pool comes from, and we need to feed that pool, and it's all about fun and participation. We need to get more people at the bottom end of that. So that is where our focus is. We see a lot of people drop off maybe in that transition between primary school and secondary school, the age of 11, 12 years old. They don't know kind of what their focus is going to be.
Everything we spoke about seems really rosy. We've painted a lovely picture of UAE youth sport, but obviously it doesn't always go that way. I'm sure you've had to have difficult conversations, maybe with principals, given the role you've got, maybe with academy owners, directors, head coaches, and so on. Without sharing examples, you don't need to name names, but what does that look like? What types of challenges and barriers do you have with the many providers you've had in?
That is a tough one, and without naming names or situations, the toughest conversation, actually there's two tough conversations. There's the toughest conversations that you have to have concern risk. One is about safety, and the ultimate risk you can have is when something ultimately goes as wrong as it can go. And that's the most difficult conversation that you can ever hope to have, not just as a academy director, as a human being. And the only way that you can do that, obviously face-to-face and with humility, and just being as real and as honest as possible with the ramifications. So we look at reputational damage. We have to look at absolutely everything. There's a wide spectrum of issues that you have to have with a principal or a sports director or a parent. And it's tough, but it has to happen. As long as you lay out all of the facts for them, I think people genuinely understand where you're coming from. You're just trying to protect them and ultimately the children. And
look, that's one example. Have you got another example? And let's maybe make it a little bit more softer. Have you got one around quality, when you've had to go in and the quality's not being where you expect, beyond the health and safety, the risk assessment side of it, the quality of what you're seeing delivered doesn't meet the grade? How do you go about approaching that?
We flip the situation on them, and we put everybody in the position of a parent who's essentially paying for a service. We're a service industry, and we provide a level of service. All parents are paying school fees, and we say to them, you're paying for a service at an outstanding school or a very good school. The sport at that school needs to match that service. And at the moment, you're coming up short in this area, this area, this area. We've given you ample opportunities to solve that. You haven't done so. Unfortunately, this is where we part ways. So it's as simple as that.
I'm really glad you brought that up, actually, because that reminds me of a quote I seen from Henry Ford. Pretty sure it was Henry Ford.
Okay.
And he said, the company that prioritises customer service will never have to worry about profits. And I've always thought about that, because we'll hire teachers from the state sector who've not worked in a fee-paying education setting, and we provide a service.
Yep.
Our service is education.
Absolutely.
And from your side, it's dealing with the academies. I think from a PE teacher who leads sports teams, it's the same thing. It's a service. It's part of the fees.
Yeah.
And I think without feeling pressurized too much, those eyes on the sideline, those adults who are watching us, they're probably also doing what you do, and they're assessing the quality, especially in such a competitive environment. For me, right now we're in Dubai, but I think that just keeps standards high, or it should do.
Parents have so much choice now, and you get hundreds of CVs, thousands of CVs almost. But what I will always go back to is that person, are they a good person fundamentally? You can teach them the skills and everything. You can teach them the elements of the job, but it's the old challenger way. It's like, get the right people, teaching the right things in the right way. And if somebody's got that about them, all the rest can be wrapped around. Customer service is number one.
Yeah.
Let's end on smile as well. Yeah.
Let's end on that, mate. So listen, thank you so much, AJ, for finally getting on the podcast. We'll have to do another episode once the Masters is done and you've put that to bed. But that's been really insightful. I think just to let parents know what goes on behind the scenes and the amount of work that goes in, the amount of quality assurance, the due diligence in terms of risk assessments and health and safety, certainly from where it was when we moved over.
Yes.
I don't want to say it wasn't safe, but you're right. There was every man with a dog and a bag of balls could run a football academy, and it's not like that no more, which is great to hear.
Yes.
So thank you very much, mate. Good luck with the Masters, and we'll speak again soon.
Long may it continue. Cheers, Jake.
Cheers, mate.